Madeline,
Yeah.
what's your channel about?
My channel, I would say, as of now, it's just about positivity, kind of doing what we want. It started out as something different, but over time, it's grown into just a inclusive, positive environment that we get to do fun things with. So whether that's Lego, cooking, chatting, games, occasionally, now more so than before, but a place where people can feel welcome and feel included no matter what it is. So I feel like that's definitely my goal for my channel now. But that's how it always has been. But what we've done on, with the community has always like kind of changed over time here and there. But as someone who works full time, there's not that luxury of, like, okay, I'm just going to grind this, or do this and play this game. For me, it's really been encompassing kind of like cooking became a thing on my channel because I was like, I don't want to DoorDash. So, let's start cooking on stream, or like even Lego, doing like my hobbies on stream more outside of gaming has become a bigger, broader focus just because of time. Yeah. Guess that's what my channel's about.
Yeah. In chat, 9.5 says true variety, which is absolutely that's amazing. Because I think the first time I tuned into your stream, you were of course doing Lego because that's how I found you. But then I recall like the next time I went, you were cooking dinner, and then you were talking about Apex. I think you ended up playing some Apex that second time I was over.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were true variety. Absolutely. And then you've added Lego to the mix. I know you've been doing that more lately. How long have you been on Twitch, and what got you into streaming to begin with?
Yeah. So I first discovered Twitch at a friend's house, probably back in 2017. A lot of my friends played League, so Worlds was on Twitch.
Yeah.
We also watched a lot of Games Done Quick, GDQ. The summer is usually held in Minnesota, so that's like my hometown. So I felt a little, connection with that. And I didn't realize there was like Worlds, right, where there's like esports and competition. That was kind of like my first taste of it. And so I knew Twitch from that. And I created a Twitch channel, I think, after a couple times of watching it with my friends. I think I made a Twitch channel in like early 2018 or something like that. Just to like watch these things on my own and like not at my friend's house on their, PlayStation or whatnot. And then I really started watching Twitch when we were playing one night. We were playing Dead by Daylight. It was the first time I had ever seen the game. I thought it was so fun to watch, let alone play. I was like kind of too scared to play it. I know it sounds funny,
yeah,
but it was a really fun game to watch. And so I remember asking, like, is Dead by Daylight on, Twitch and stuff like that? And they were like, oh yeah, there's tons of stuff. There's tons of games. And so that's when I really discovered like the idea, not streaming. I had no intention of streaming at this point. It was just more of like watching, because I wanted to play Dead by Daylight, with people.
Mm-hmm.
But I was too scared to kind of do it on my own. So I decided, and before that, I really only had like a laptop and my Switch, right? I played basically The Sims on my laptop, and then I played, all the Nintendo games, Super Mario. I think Animal Crossing came out a little later, Pokemon, like all that kind of stuff, right? Basically from there, I just started watching more and more, and I started to try and like chat in Dead by Daylight streams. And this could range from, people with like 20 viewers all the way up to like 200. And I found a couple things. It was really hard for me. Like I've mentioned, I kind of get anxiety. I get social anxiety, probably more so on the internet than in person, because it's something that's like very different than what I'm used to, right? You're used to talking with people, your family, friends in person, but doing it online was a little bit new for me. And I found myself feeling kind of defeated when I would like start chatting and chat, and, streamer would say hi, but then like that would be like the end, and be like, oh, how's the game? And then they, whether they're busy gaming or whatever, I felt like, maybe this is a little hard to try to find others that play Dead by Daylight to play with. So I kind of at that point decided that I was going to stream to find others to play Dead by Daylight with. And then I was going to get off, and like once I found a group of people to play with, then I wouldn't stream anymore, because streaming was very scary for me, right? Like the amount of anxiety. I had all the stuff to stream for 4 or 5 months before I actually got, like the courage. Even Dead by Daylight, I was too scared to play Dead by Daylight on my own. So for 2 weeks, I literally just did like the how-to gameplay thing, right? Because it was like very daunting for me. I remember I had like 2 of my friends. I was like, hey, and I was like on the verge of tears when I hit that go live button because I was like so scared. Like, and I don't know why. It's just, it's just something that I have. And that was kind of how I first started streaming. And then there's a whole slew of issues. Like I didn't have the right upload speeds in the internet. I'm sure as a streamer, we all know about that. And,
Right.
My stream was like a PowerPoint, kind of all that stuff. And that's actually what led me to do Just Chatting, because that was the one thing that I could stream until I got new internet and they came out and fixed it after a week or two. So yeah. And then I guess I enjoyed it once I got over my fear, and I kind of just continued to do it. And that's how I started.
I like how this all was born from, like, I want to play this game with people, and I want to meet other people, and then it kind of turned into this whole thing of its own, of course. Now, when you first started and you were navigating those early issues of figuring out what it meant to stream, at what point did you realize that you just wanted to keep going? Was there a specific moment, or what kind of made you think, oh yeah, it's time to actually just keep doing this?
Yeah. Well, when I first started streaming, I think one of the big challenges for me was I was working full time and I was also doing my MBA, which was almost full-time program, right?
Right.
And so I didn't really have a social life outside of that, if that makes sense. And once I started, streaming, and then you start to see, and I'm sure, like everyone who streams here, you kind of see those same people come back, and you really start developing that rapport with people and relationship, and they like, start real, like they start learning about, like, how was your day? It becomes like what you would do with like normal with IRL friends, right? And I think after a few months of feeling like I had established these friendships with incredible people that had the same interests as me in terms of gaming, I was like, maybe I don't want to stop doing this because these people are like me. Because, like during my MBA program and at work, growing up, gaming wasn't really mainstream, right? Especially PC gaming. And I'm sure you're aware, and it was a little difficult, trying to find friends. I mean, I remember like, recess elementary school, I didn't want to go outside. I wanted to play Pokemon. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you know what I mean? And it was like, lucky if my teacher would let me stay in the classroom so I could play my Game Boy, because at that point, like the LED screen wasn't a thing really. So you would go out and it'd be too bright and you'd be like, trying to play it outside. So it was the first time that I felt like I found people who had the same interests as me. And it really felt like, oh my God, I feel accepted, really, like for the first time. And I think that's when I decided, I didn't want to give up streaming, even if it was, gaming, chatting, whatever it was. I really just wanted to continue with it. So, yeah.
I love that story. And I think that's really nice that you started making friends. You realized that these people are in your chat are becoming a part of your routine, just like you became a part of theirs. And decided it was just time to keep going. And how
and I didn't really have a direction at that time because I did just chatting a lot, which I felt was like I had no intention of doing just chatting when I started, right? I was going to be Dead by Daylight, and then Apex came out, and I wanted to be do Dead by Daylight and Apex, and sprinkle some chatting in there. But I really found it really difficult to connect with the community the way that I could in just chatting and just focus on them, and that kind of goes back into the whole, like, I'm also blind in one eye. So playing games and reading chat can be a little bit more challenging for me as well. But, if I have just chatting and it's that 200 size font, like the maxed out, on the screen, then I can actually see and focus. So, yeah.
I like how you had everything ready to go for months, and then you just decided, like, maybe I'll actually do it. Did it just take time to get like used to the idea, or what finally got you to hit that start stream button?
The immense amount of wanting to play the game that I was too scared of, that pressure like eventually built up enough for me to just press the button, right? And it's funny because I actually didn't even play Dead by Daylight my first stream. My first stream I ever played was Hearthstone. Because I played it on my mobile. I played it, enough where I was like, at least I kind of know the game, where it's like not like a brand new game like Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
So my first game I played was Hearthstone. And then, of course, like I had two people from IRL that were like, I'll be in chat. And I'd be like, text, are you there? I'm going to stream. I'm so scared, And so it took them, I think, saying like, you got this. It's not a big deal. Like, it's just you and us having a conversation. It's like the two gamers I knew IRL that actually like got me to click the button.
Yeah.
Because it was like so nerve-wracking,
From now all the way back to when you started, what do you think is the biggest things that have changed about your channel and your content?
So much has changed, actually. I think when I first started, I was definitely like, hey guys. I was very like, because I don't think reading a chat and imagining like, and this is how I read chat. Like I read chat and I imagine as I'm reading it that they're saying that out loud. Right. Like, I don't think that's necessarily something that like just is natural. Right. Maybe for some people, but not for me, especially. It took me a long time to get comfortable with reading chat and responding in a way as if we're having like a conversation. Right. That didn't come for me. So that was probably one of them that's changed. Like the first time I'd be like, I'd have like a little drink and be, like sip on something and be like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, as I've gotten more comfortable. And so I've definitely become more talkative, more, expressive, more, I don't want to say like more myself, because it's not like I wasn't at the beginning, but anytime you're trying something new, I think you're definitely, just observing, feeling things out, what's okay, what's not, how do people react, stuff like that. So I think that's one of them. I think the second big change is obviously my streaming space. When I first started, I was in a small, like little 1-bedroom apartment. My streaming setup was in my bedroom. I could barely even like fit my chair between the bed and the desk. Right. So when I like got up, I'd have to like,
Scoot
wiggle out.
Wiggle
out just to like, get out. And so that was one of the big things I think that's changed. And now I've like moved into, I'm in a place now where I have literally like streaming area in my kitchen and my living room, right? Like it's all kind of developed. So I think that's one of the big changes is like what my setup has become. And then I think the third, is just, I think there was always a aspect of just chatting within my stream, because of the internet problems, and it kind of, it ended up turning into an amazing, great thing. But, I think like my goal when I first started streaming was, I was going to stream, I didn't really start streaming until the summer or fall that year. Right. When I first started streaming, it was like once a week, I was in school and working full time. So it was kind of like, I'll get on this week, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But once I like decided I wanted to have like a schedule and actually stream, even if it was just part-time or as a hobby. I really was like, I'm going to do, 2 or 3 streams a week and 2 of them are going to be gaming. I'll do Dead by Daylight one day and then Apex the other. And then, so that's one of the big things that I think has changed is, it's kind of evolved and suddenly it became more chatting. And then it became, like adding in things like pumpkin carving. And then it became like, Lego and, like we did a couple cooking streams for, Thanksgiving, we've done that for several years now. And it became like, I actually kind of like this, even though before I didn't really like the idea of like cooking because like as a woman, it's like, you didn't want to like fill what like society,
right.
Those like wanted you, the expectations of that. And that's like why I didn't want to do just chatting and cooking as much at first. But, I
Yeah.
think as over time you become comfortable with yourself and who you are and you say, hey, I actually do like these things. And it's okay if I'm a woman and I'm doing them, right? I got to do what makes me happy.
We have some questions in the chat. Let's
Yeah.
see. Goddess of D says, "How have the connections you met within Twitch changed your life, both within Twitch and in real life?"
Well, I would say now most of my IRL friends are from Twitch now.
Hmm.
It's kind of weird. My boyfriend I met through Twitch. Even like my best friend Taylor, she also streams on Twitch. I met her several years ago. We do different content, but we get along so amazingly. I didn't know I could connect with like another woman in that way. Even like I'll give an example. Like I did like a sub meetup trip at Disneyland before COVID happened. And I became friends with like so many of those people that I literally went out for 2 weeks and I gave one of my friends, which is, a subscriber in the community, my keys and was like, here,
Wow.
make sure to check on my house. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And so like I've really become just like and so yeah, and he would like come and, check on my house and water my plants when I had this like big long road trip. And so I don't necessarily see anymore as much. And obviously that takes time. I don't really see like there's like IRL friends for me and Twitch friends because
Right.
the people I spend the most time with IRL are all people I've met off Twitch. Even
Right.
like Fred, I met last weekend at Bricks and Minifigs. So it's like,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, of course you have to be a little cautious and you have to like make sure, person's sane and like all that kind of stuff. And, make sure you're meeting, especially as a woman, meeting people in the right context and places. But yeah, for me, it's really become all of my IRL friends are all people that I've met with, with Twitch.
That's a unique situation, I think, that not most Twitch streamers end up in, and so that's really cool to hear that like they've essentially merged these two.
Yeah.
Like they've become your Twitch friends. The folks you meet on Twitch have become your IRL friends, and so
Right.
does that process seem any different to you? I imagine, the whole idea of parasocial relationships, right? Your viewers may know more about you than you may know more about them at first. Was there any kind of like getting to know all of them? Did that affect how you were learning more about them, or was it just natural? How did that all kind of form for you?
It's kind of weird because I feel like it was very natural, just because of the way that I did chat. It was always about how are you, how was your day? Like that was really always my focus for my just chatting portion. Like some people like have different, maybe they're just chatting, they're reacting to stuff, or maybe, they're just chatting and they're, talking about a game specifically or movies. But like my main focus for just chatting was always getting to know the people who spend time with me, right?
Mhm.
Like, those 2 or 3 days a week, at night after work. And so there are still people that I haven't met, but I know their brothers and sisters and like how their new job starting, where they like, not to be weird, but where they live, like,
Right.
how they're, like you start to develop those. And of course, it's not like everyone in my community,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's, it's people that have been there longer, this and that. But
Mhm.
you really do start to form, of course, there are some parasocial aspects here and there.
Mhm.
But once you start playing games with people, once you start getting in, Discord chats and you start meeting up and you see them at TwitchCon and like you have this, it's not just a screen separating you anymore, right? You really have real world experience with them. And I think that's when you start having these like Twitch friends starting to merge into more of that IRL type of friend and, like people I count on. For example, the job I have now, one of my mods actually was my referral because, like I work in, aerospace. So you have to get like, for special clearances, you have to get like letters and stuff of like character and stuff like that. And one of my mods offered that and
Wow.
was my person, one of my people for that. So yeah, I think it does take time. It's not something that like, oh, they just subscribe for 3 months and suddenly it's like, yeah, you're my friend, like, I'm not saying that,
Right.
and of course with moderators and other, people you do form a little bit more closer relationships with. But yeah. I think it's, something that over time can develop. Yeah.
And maybe I missed it or forgot. How long have you been streaming?
My first stream ever was January 2019. So
Nice.
we just passed 4 years, since my first stream. Actively streaming, I didn't really start actively streaming until that summer. Yeah, it's been 4 years now, and it goes by quick. It's kind of like I was joking with some of the mods, like I have a 4-year degree in streaming now. Like
You
I
finally
have a bachelor's in
graduated.
streaming. Yeah, I finally
Yeah,
graduated.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a long haul. I know you said you also have been streaming, or you took a break here and there when we were talking
Yeah.
before. How long have you been streaming?
I started in 2017.
Okay, so even before me. Wow.
Yeah, I started in 2017. It was the before times. It was before there was even affiliates and things like that. I got affiliate, I think, later that year when it rolled out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I streamed all the way through 2018. So about a good year. And then I took about 9-10 months off. And then
Okay.
I came back early 2020. Does that timeline work? Somewhere around then. I started kind of getting back into it. And then the COVID happened, and then I found myself with more time to do it. And so I started
Mm-hmm.
doing it more. So yeah, roughly almost 6 years. It'll be like 6 years this summer total, but like 5 of them I've been streaming, and then I took that block of time away.
It's definitely changed
Mm-hmm.
Twitch in general in those few years, even just the last 2 years. It's kind of crazy to see how
Mm-hmm.
different it is. When I first started streaming and I would stream in just chatting, people would be like, when are you going to play a game? Like, when are you gaming tonight or not? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and now it's like the biggest streamers on the platform are just chatting streamers, and it's just weird to kind of see how that shift has happened over time.
Yeah,
So.
that's a great thing to point out, because for a very long time, all the top categories were games. Yeah, like you said, over the last couple of years, just chatting has taken over. It's one of the most streamed to and watched categories on the platform. It's I remember those days too, where I never had considered the thought of just chatting when it rolled out, and I was like, I don't know if I could. And it wasn't even anything about the category. It was more about like, I don't think people want to listen to what I have to say about stuff. Like, I don't
Right.
I mean, I was like, I talk during my gaming, and people are gonna pay attention to my gaming. This was like a more of like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was like, if you asked me if I would ever host a podcast, let alone do a just chatting stream, I never would have said that would have happened, because I would have said, I don't think people would want to listen to me talk about things. But
Right.
Here we are.
Right. And now it's it's crazy how it's grown, and now people don't even like bat an eye.
Yeah.
If you just do just chatting, literally.
Like you said, a lot of the top streamers are just chatting streamers, or a lot of gaming streams have become just chatting streamers.
But I think that goes to that. I think it's because you can connect a little bit more easily, potentially, with your community in that category versus, focusing on a game and going back and forth, right?
We got another question that's a follow-up to some of what we've been chatting about here. How have you learned to implement boundaries in your relationships through Twitch? What was it different than your real life relationships?
Implement boundaries. Are we talking like specifically maybe about like people that have gotten like weird, or
levels of trust?
Yeah, levels of trust. I think honestly the biggest thing is like time, right? And the longer you know someone, it's like you kind of want to like feed people a little bit, a little bit more every time. It's like suddenly it's like not a lot of people know where I work specifically, right? My mods do. My mods have my address, just in case of emergencies happen, stuff like that. But like those levels of trust take, I've been streaming for 4 years, at least 2 to 3 years for that to actually like happen. And it becomes like I think it's more of like a trust in tidbits, and as you grow within your relationship, it's all about this level. I look at it like a video game, right? In some sense, or you have like, you're leveling up, right? Maybe they know at first, maybe they know, I don't know, maybe my favorite color, or I don't know, just like a
Right.
normal friend, and then you start getting to know them. Oh, what's your favorite food? And then, you just get to know them as a person. What, like, I don't want to, does it sound weird? Like what state you
No,
live in and all that stuff,
it
but,
makes sense. Makes
yeah, I
sense.
think it's just more of like a leveling up and then time. And then there's like times in my life, especially with my moms,
Hmm.
that, things have happened, right? Whether it's like emergencies have happened in my life, personal stuff. And, you get to a point where it's like, I don't feel comfortable sharing, like maybe the death of my grandmother with, these people. And, maybe I need someone to talk to because I can't just keep these things
Hmm.
inside. So, and I think definitely, like my mods, I only have 4 mods. And I think it's because I do feel like they are my best friends. And I don't know if that's not like a good or a bad thing, honestly. But yeah, it's just something that I feel like over time kind of develops and you play games and it's just kind of like a normal friendship. I don't know.
Right. Just over
Yeah.
time, as you get to know them and get more comfortable,
Yeah.
that interpersonal level of sharing uh, gets easier.
Right.
Right.
And like I feel like for most of my mods, if I actually needed something IRL, like I needed them to come to my house and help me in an emergency, that they would.
Hmm.
And like that's that level of trust, like I've developed over with my mod, fam. But that definitely isn't something that just happens over a couple streams.
Right. Takes time,
Takes time. Yeah.
as well as, like you said, playing games or just talking to them through your streams. And
Yeah. Or
yeah.
even like I was on my way home last night. I had a 2-hour commute because of traffic and, I live in Southern California, so it can get a little crazy. And,
Hmm.
we just jump in a Discord call and talk, and about very real, world things for me,
Hmm.
things that I may be struggling with, within myself. And, just like, yeah. So it's just like calling up your friends, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Thanks for sharing all of that. I know that we don't get an opportunity to talk about how we think about some of these things, whether it's how we approach other people in our community or how close we are to some of our mods and regulars. So thank you for sharing a lot of that. And this insight is I think really useful for a lot of people out there.
Right. Like Twitch really is. I was not expecting Twitch to become for me like what it has become. Right. Like when I first started, it was like, I'm going to meet some friends and we're going to play games. And, there's been times in my life where, I don't want to get, too TMI, where I've been in, not very good relationships, maybe like abusive,
Mhm.
where I had my community and my mods, and not my community like know so much about what was happening, but my mods did, and my mods sent me stuff, even friends from the community, or like, the person I told you about that came over to my house to check on things. And, when I was out for 2 weeks, stuff like that. It's like, yeah. And I think about like my IRL friends, like, would they have even been there the way my mods were,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, it's very special. Yeah.
You would say it's life changing, right?
It is 100% life changing. Like I feel like the day, like, and I think people pick this day just because it's like, this is the time where you invite a lot of people. I think about like, if I ever do get married, like, of course I
Hmm.
would invite all my mods. Of course, there's people in the community that are like VIP that I would invite, because those are like the people that have changed my life,
Yeah.
probably the most in these past 4 years now. I went through a lot. And maybe I don't talk about it so much, but while I've been streaming, I've gotten a new job. I've moved. I've been in and out. Well, not in and out. I don't want to say it like that, but like, I was in a pretty not good relationship. I was single. Now I'm in a great relationship, with another streamer. You know what I mean? So it's like, I graduated with my MBA. I've had like another dog. It's just like everything that you can think of, like, has happened within these 4 years. And even during the bad times, it's kind of like, my community was what like helped me through. And then COVID, right? Like just everything, everyone dealt with COVID. Yeah, that was a time that I think about, like, if I didn't stream or I didn't have people to game with, like, what would I have done? I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of us feel that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say the same for myself. I think if it wasn't for my community and the people in it while that whole thing was going on, it would have been a lot tougher to cope with.
Yeah.
Uh, all things aside from like what I was doing on stream, which served as a nice distraction, but it was actually the people there that made it really just bearable, honestly,
Mhm.
to deal
Yeah.
with being, especially when everything just went into lockdown. Like, I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I got nowhere to be.
Yeah.
Guess
Are
we're
you
all
gonna play
hanging
some
out.
games?
Yeah. Guess we're all gonna hang out and play some games. So let's do this, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely taken twists and turns these past 4 years, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
If you could go back and talk to Mads at the very beginning of this streaming journey, would you tell her anything?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Let me take
Yeah.
a sip.
Yeah.
I would probably tell her that, and I know a lot of women face a lot of things when you put yourself on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, don't worry about what you look like. Don't worry about what you wear. Don't worry about what games you play if you're playing the right, like if you're doing the right things, because I truly believe you need to just do things that make you happy, because I think a lot of people go through this, but I think women especially, you go through this like you're never going to win. You're never going to please everyone. For instance, I think the reason I took a step back from gaming and that like gaming content as my stream focus is because a lot of times women as like gaming creators can't win. Right. And what I mean by that is if you're amazing, people will tell you you're getting carried, or people only watch you because of the way you look. And if you're losing, you feel that pressure to like not be like what people think, women who game are, right? Especially like with Apex and, those types of games. And so I think my advice would just be to do what makes you happy. Like I didn't do cooking, for example, because it was like, that was what women do, right? Like I don't want to fill that, that spot. So I think, and in general, just, wear what makes you feel comfortable, do what makes you happy. And just know, no matter what, that you are going to get hate because of the way you were born. And you just have to accept that and, persevere. So I would say that's probably what I would tell myself. And I wish it wasn't like that. And I think there will be a time when it becomes more normalized, but I mean, there's just a lot of hate in the world towards, a lot of different, people based on like religion, color, how you identify. And you have to say that does not define me. And at the end of the day, I need to do what makes me happy. And I have the friends around me who will support me.
Thank you for sharing that. I completely agree, and like I'll never understand what it's like as a woman, going through what you go through, and many others on Twitch and the internet, on the internet, like like you said earlier,
Right.
just putting yourself out there is
right.
makes things tough.
It can be scary. There's things like, even I am, dating a male streamer now. There are so many differences that I didn't realize until we started dating. Like how comfortable he is, just, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or whatever, but just like how comfortable, he can say the area that he lives in more comfortably than I can. And I don't think that's something that you should ever share. And so that was like one of the conversations we had to have talk about, of like, hey, I have a real, like, as a woman, I need to think about these things. Like, would you mind, instead of saying like a general area, maybe say Southern California, or California versus,
Right.
like you might be okay, but there's things that I need to worry about, like stalkers or, people showing up, that maybe he doesn't, or even just, it's, there's things that there's like a lot of different battles that people face based on, how they're born. And it's sad that, we have to, but I would say, yeah, it's just, you got to do what makes you happy. And be safe.
Yeah. Definitely
Um,
be safe. I think that's the big thing. We talked about how you got into Twitch and how you've evolved as a streamer over time. One thing I want to commend you on, and you brought this up earlier, is all the different places like within your home that you can stream from.
yeah.
I think it's cool that you have your setup like for your cooking stream, or like when you do your Lego or just chatting, that you have a very flexible like ability to just like physically change up the space you're in, like walk off camera, go to the other space. I remember that's, like I said, I think the second time I saw you, you were doing cooking. You're like, okay, we're gonna go over here, and like you push the button and you're like, you walk on the screen to another room. I'm like, that is so great. But how long did it take you to get to that setup over the years? Like when
Oh,
did that occur for you?
once I moved, so when I was in my old apartment, it was still the corner of my bedroom, right? And
Yeah.
that shifted a little bit, right? So it became like, oh, streaming is something I should, I should do more. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so then I started getting rid of like end tables in my bedroom to like fit, another desk space, because I wanted to do painting. So
Mhm.
that's something that I also started getting back into through Twitch. And what the problem was, I got a new job, Twitch started to give me a little extra income. At that point, I was like, okay, I would like to move into a little bit of a larger space so I can have like my own space separate from, working from home, my bedroom, like I wanted to have that separation. So, because I was like tired of getting paint on my mattress or like my my bedspread, every time I did like a Bob Ross painting, right? Like,
Right.
it was like, okay, maybe it's okay. And this was like part of why I even say like streaming for me was really life changing, was because the income that I made from streaming at that point just
Mhm.
gave me that extra little income that afforded me that bigger apartment space to stream from.
Yeah.
And so specifically, when I first started, I was like just looking for like a 2 bedroom. I wasn't looking, I was like, I wanted a room for, sleeping and streaming. I wanted those to be separate.
Right.
And, so I was actually in my other, the second bedroom when I first started streaming. And then, it became a thing of like, well, why don't we do, cooking streams? And I was like, okay, yeah. And so I'd have like a laptop and I would have like a whole separate setup, but it was like, and how hard it would be to like set up a second setup to start
Mhm.
doing those things. And so after about a year of being in the room and then setting up every time we did cooking, which is like once a month or every other month, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to move my setup, like, so that I can just have it connected to, the kitchen or like right by it, because I have the layout in my home for that. So I moved it into here. And it's a little bit big of a space even too. It's like this is technically my dining room, but
Yeah.
but I have made it my stream room, right? Because there's supposed to be like right here. There's like a bar, right, where you have like stools, so you could like eat at the bar and
Yeah.
kitchen and stuff like that. But that's like taken over by like a piano and cameras and stuff like that now. And so it made it way more simple to just have cooking streams more often, because I was tired of spending money on DoorDash. I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I watched the Great British Baking Show and I was like, ooh, do I like cooking now more? It was kind of like a moment of, maybe I should implement it more in my streams, because I like, the idea of having, like unprocessed foods or, things. And
Right.
if I can do content out of this hobby or passion of mine and share that with others who may be like experiencing the same things. Because like, I think as gamers, we can get very comfortable with just saying like, I'll just order this.
Oh yeah.
I'll just get something delivered, right? I'm doing a raider. I'm doing, I'm ranking up and I don't want to like have to worry about cooking, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of forced me also to stream it more and to like and to cook more instead of ordering DoorDash and spending that extra money and budgeting better and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's how my kitchen came into my stream setup. And then I kind of, was filling up my space with like a piano, and I have a cart here and this, and I have like a couch for the doggos and,
Mm.
I have my painting. And then I was like, well, maybe there's a living room now. I like to do Lego over there. How hard would it be to, that's where I do it when I'm not on stream. How hard would it be just to like hook up another camera?
Yeah.
And it's like, and it becomes like an evolved process. It's never something that I intended to happen.
Just kind of occurred. Yeah.
It just kind of occurred. And as I didn't want to become bored with doing the same thing on stream all the time, like, not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, but for me, what makes stream exciting, some people get excited by playing their favorite game every stream, right? Like and getting on and playing that same game. What gets me excited about streaming is, Tuesday night, I'm going to just work on some Lego after work. And then Saturday, we're going to, work on a Bob Ross and we're going to, do some more Lego and play Apex, like the variety of streaming for me helps it continue to make it exciting and something that I want to do. And so that's kind of how it like developed. Yeah.
That's an incredible story. And it was born out of necessity from what it sounds like, right? You were tired of doing DoorDash. You were tired of ordering in. You're like, I'm going to cook my own meals. And then I think like many streamers and content creators do, were like, can we stream that? Or can I, can I turn this into something? What was the response from your community when you started doing cooking more regularly?
Oh, I think they loved it. I think especially though, when I started, obviously I wasn't as good. And like, there's still some things I'm the type where I'm like, frick it. I don't need to like even cut this way. I'm going to just, like even the way like I do garlic or use scissors to cut things, like instead of a knife, I think like, I'm still very much myself in a sense, but I understand how things go together with cooking in terms of like garlic and onion. And like, I know that. But I've definitely kept who I am at the core. Like, I'm not trying to be a cooking show, right? I'm not trying to like when I do cooking. Right. I'm just Mads. I'm just like, I'm a gamer. I'm a Lego builder. I want to have some nice chicken pasta. Let's use the scissors and make it easy. I don't want to have to dirty another knife. I'll just rinse this off, And I think the response, and I think, when I first started streaming cooking, the scuffness of it was kind of the appeal. Like setting off, I did a Thanksgiving dinner. I will never forget the stream. I did a Thanksgiving dinner, but of course I started at like 10 p.m. because it's like, that's my time that I can after work. And I was up till 4 a.m. cooking Thanksgiving dinner, and then I like was making Brussels sprouts and the fire alarm went off and it's like 4 a.m. and then like the chaos and everything was just happening, and it's just like, I'm like fanning and it's like 4 a.m. Like my neighbors probably hate me. Over time, I think, and it's hard because I feel like it does take time to build a type of community that you want that will watch you kind of do anything, right? Their response was really great. And I've, from what I've been told, it's even inspired some other people in the community to, like start making their own pasta, for instance. Like that's one of the things that I love the most about cooking is making my own pasta now instead of box pasta, because it's better for you. And so I've been showing people it's actually really easy, and I think that's, like I'm learning cooking is also part of the appeal for my, like the community as well. It's like, oh, maybe this isn't as hard or like I can do this, and I think that's why, it works.
And you touched on something that I think is really, really excellent to point out is that when you grow your community to a certain point, whether it's a combination of time or just size, but some combo of that, they are totally cool watching us do different things, whether it be starting cooking stream regularly or Lego or something that's wildly different than what we used to do. I mean, I started as a traditional game streamer and then of course doing all the other things that I do, and much like your story, and then you got into cooking and Lego and things like that. So that's really.
I will say the one thing though about doing it that way is that, you don't grow as fast either. You know what I mean? Like when you pick one game or one activity or whatever that is, and you just do that every stream, every time for year after year, you definitely have, the ability to, grow a little bit more. Sometimes I'll get people that only like to watch cooking, or, some people only come when I watch, play Apex, or, now I've got people that only come when I do Lego. So I think there's like, my happiness, and I think this should be for every streamer, happiness should be the most important part of streaming,
Mhm.
right? But it does come with some drawbacks of, growing as a content creator. And then you have to really say, is growing more important or is happiness more important and being excited to stream more important?
Yeah.
And, luckily I have a full-time job, so I don't really have to focus on that. But I think that's something to be aware of for anyone who is thinking or who has been streaming or starting to stream. Yeah, it's a little bit of a harder route, but for me, it's more rewarding.
Thank you for iterating that point, because it's very true. It's deciding what is the most important, right? Whether you're super focused on growth, or you're super focused on, hey, I just want to play this one game, or I just
Mm-hmm.
want to do all of these things, right? And as
Mm-hmm.
you said, there's a so it depends on the route you go, and it will affect your journey one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's just to keep in mind,
Yeah.
for anyone who's streaming, because, it doesn't necessarily, and I think a lot of people, and I even, have looked at a lot of people will look back and be like, oh, they feel defeated if their viewership's a little bit lower. And it's something that as I continue to stream, you just have to be comfortable with that aspect of streaming too. And I've gotten to a point where I don't even look. I don't even know how many viewers I have at a time. I don't even know, I
Mhm.
rarely even check, what my viewership is anymore, because it's you got to do what makes you happy, or
Yeah.
you're not going to survive, or it's just going to drain you.
Yeah, it becomes another thing you may not look forward to if
Like a
you start
chore.
stress. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a whole nother. Yeah, I've ran into so many other creators over time that have kind of gotten lost in that whole thing, whether they're really focused on growing their community, or they're just that Twitch grind that some of them that some of
Yeah.
us get stuck in, and they
Yeah.
kind of forget what made them do it to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's partially why even I started Lego recently,
Mm.
is because as much as I love, for me, it's I need the variety. And, going on Apex every Friday, or, trying to do games, or, the thought of doing games was really kind of scary, because it was I felt like I was putting on this pressure. I'm a very competitive person. I just felt like I was putting on this pressure for me to perform a certain way as a woman, especially, right? Because you
Mhm.
didn't want to feel what it meant to be a female gamer, right? When I started doing Lego on stream, it's the first thing, even cooking, right? Not that I'm way more comfortable now, but even when you start cooking, there's still this pressure of oh my God, they're gonna think I suck at cooking. You know what I mean? You're gonna be you don't
Right.
even know how to boil pasta. Um, there you put this pressure on yourself. But I think with Lego, and why I'm so passionate about doing it,
Mhm.
is because there's really no right or wrong
Yeah.
way to build Lego, right? You can have a set, but you don't have to do that the way the instructions even are, right?
Mhm.
You could build, a tiger out of the modular if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's why Lego has really appealed to me more recently,
Mm.
is because it's the first thing I've felt in a long time where I don't feel this pressure. I mean, of course you feel this pressure, I at least need to try to get one bag done, maybe. You know what I mean? Or but it's a
Right.
little bit different of just enjoying the experience rather than what I'm actually doing, if that makes sense.
How did you get into Lego? Like, what made you decide to start building?
On stream or before?
How far apart were they?
Lego has been in my life for a long time.
Mhm.
Um, I remember when I was very, very young, maybe 7 or 8, going over to my cousin's house, and they had their, castle sets and, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, ooh, this is so cool. But, it wasn't necessarily I was still more into Pokemon and those kinds of things. So doing Lego with my cousins was something that I would do occasionally growing up. And then my mom had my brother,
Mhm.
and I was I was a little bit older than him at the time. So it was my mom got remarried, and, they wanted to have, a baby. So My brother came along. And then my brother was really into things like trains and planes, the airports, and of course they have like Lego City. So
Right.
they started getting him all that. And so around middle school for me is when I started becoming interested. And then they had like the Hogwarts that's come out, and like my whole family's like super into, Harry Potter and stuff like that. So Lego has really been in my life for a
Mhm.
long, long time. But then it wasn't until on stream we were talking about Star Wars. We were talking about, the movies and, like Ben Solo and Kylo, and they did them wrong in the movie, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And someone mentioned randomly, and I'll never forget this stream. Someone mentioned like, oh, they have the Kylo Ren shuttle Lego set. And I was like, huh? You know what I mean? Because like I didn't think about it at the time, being it like, making it my content or part of my content. I was like, okay. And I looked at it and it was kind of expensive, for my budget. Because obviously, like we all have budgets for the most part, unless, you're, you got your own thing going. But for me, like, it was like, oh, it was like, it's like $100 or a little over. And I was like, I just don't know if I have it in my budget, right now, but like maybe eventually.
Right.
And someone was like, can you just do a donut for it? And I was like, okay, I guess I can. And I did a donut goal, and immediately someone just donated the money to get it. And I was like, okay, I guess we're getting the Kylo Ren shuttle. You know what I mean? And so it became, and I remember, like, again, it had been a couple years since I had done any Lego building.
Right.
And I am one of those people, when I stream, I'm very clumsy. And I don't know why, but like I'll knock, I've knocked wine glasses on my keyboards. I've ruined keyboard. Like I'm very messy. So I remember just like being like, I'm going to put this on my floor so I can't drop pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like put it in my floor, and we did like, I used this camera, and everyone's like, I'm like just on my floor trying to like put this Kylo Ren shuttle together. And I was like, oh my God.
That's great.
I'm like, can they see the instructions? Can they see, like I'm worried about all this kind of stuff. And it took like hours just to get like one bag done.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how Lego started on stream. And then of course, like the botanical collections came out, and I'm a plant lady. It's like my whole family. It's like, I think I got it genetically. My sister went to school for it. Like she did plant genetics and horticulture minor. Like, my grandmother's part of the American Rose Society. Like, like plants have always been, but I never felt like I had the green thumb. But then with Lego, released their botanical collection with, the bonsai and what was it, the bouquet. It's like, and so that's like really, I think when a couple of years ago, when I really started getting back into it. And I remember I did like a TikTok like 2 years ago, all of it, you know what I mean? Of like just building it together and stuff like that. And I guess the rest is history.
Yeah.
And then of course, Minecraft, Lego, and we built the Minecraft pigs. I liked Minecraft too. We played Minecraft on stream too. And having those two, botanical and Minecraft specifically, I think. And then of course, Nintendo. Mm-hmm. Having like getting the gaming side of me and the plant lady part of me, like into like little plastic, art. I was like, ooh, and yeah, it's kind of gone from there.
How long ago was that?
Well, I think I started getting into botanical whenever those sets came out, like 2020, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So it's been a couple of years, but I really didn't start doing it completely until like, okay, so funny story. I remember finding it very difficult to find Lego streamers. Like I didn't even realize people streamed Lego and makers and crafting. I only saw, a few streamers do Lego here and there and just chatting. And I don't know why, but Ace was actually the first Lego streamer I found. And I followed him probably like a year ago. I don't know, something like that. It's been a little bit. And I remember I would just lurk. Like I'm not one of those people. I'm scared to talk in new chats, right? Like so I just lurk. But it was like, oh my God, so I would just watch, Ace, and that's actually eventually how I met you, just like build Lego. But I never really thought about it as like doing as my content, because I was like, well, I do cooking and I do Apex and I do Sims and we do all that kind of stuff. But then I tried it and I didn't realize how many people in my community already did Lego. And I was like, oh, well, if you guys like it, then like I like it. Then why don't we,
why don't we keep doing it?
Just do it, yeah. And that's kind of how it became, a thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm getting is it didn't really change a whole lot for your community.
No. I mean, like, I think that's like like whenever you try something as a streamer that's new,
Yeah.
right? There's always are people not going to like it? Is it going to affect, not that I like focus on this, but like, are people actually going to watch it? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because there's been things or like games where it's like people will be like, oh yeah, you should do this. And then you do it. And it's like, do you guys really want that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and so that was kind of for me at first, and as I've gotten, more into streaming, the more I've realized like it doesn't matter at the end of the day. I need to do it if it makes me happy. Cause like, like it's no
Yep.
point in doing stuff that doesn't. So, and so, yeah, that's always like a thing in the back of your head when you do something new, where it's like, heavy breathing. Like, am I
Yeah.
just gonna I still get the anxiety. I don't know if you do or if any other streamers do. I still get the anxiety every time I push the go live button if like people are gonna show up for stream.
Oh yeah.
Like that hasn't changed after 4 years.
Yeah.
It's like, is this a stream that I'm talking to myself? You know what I mean? Like, not that like I necessarily expect that, but sometimes like
It's a worry.
It's a worry.
Yeah. I go through it too.
Yeah.
Even after 5-6 years, I still go through that.
Yeah.
There are days where
it doesn't go away.
Yeah, there are days where I'm like, is anyone gonna show up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it like, yeah, I mean, it's still a very real thing and it doesn't necessarily go away. But overall, you've just kind of been like, well, at least if no one shows up, I can just build Lego,
Yeah.
and like I can entertain myself with Lego or cooking, all the stuff.
Glitter Girl was asking about your favorite builds. We kind of talked about this earlier, but
yeah.
We'll touch really quickly on it. The botanical sets, right?
Yeah,
the
botanical. I have all of them. I still need to build the 2 new ones. I'm actually probably going to build the wildflower one after this, actually. Wildflower bouquet.
Yeah.
So all the botanicals. I've been really into like the Minecraft ones, the small Minecraft ones. Like I have the Fox Lodge and the Mushroom House and Bee Cottage over here, Of course, I have a couple, the Kylo Ren shuttle. You can't see it's like above the lunar lander right here. It's like above that one. Probably that one just because it's the nostalgia for me and doing it on the stream. And then, the modulars have become like, they just pull my heartstrings.
Yeah. I love them so much. I love modulars. Is that what your focus is right now? Is just building those out?
I think so. I think my focus is probably a Lego city. Cool. And I want to do lighting kits. So that's like, I'm going to turn my living room into like a Lego building room in Lego City situation.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I live with someone who's okay with that. So, and he supports it. So, I can imagine if you're with someone who maybe, is like, what the hell, but, I'm lucky that I'm with someone who's just so supportive of everything I do. If I wanted to make a Lego home, he'd be like, yeah, let's do it.
Do it.
So, it's really important to have people. And that's another side note. It's really important to have people in your life, whether it's significant others or friends, that support you in what you want to do and that make you happy.
My partner, she's absolutely same deal. Like supportive of my Lego habit, my streaming, like, and I honestly think that for any creator who wants to do this and who wants to just make it a part of their life in a meaningful way, whether it's as a full-time streamer or just, I think like you and I is just a big part of what we do, even though it's not our career. It's important to have, like, if you have a partner or you have someone close in your life, that you get that buy-in or that support.
Right. And even before we've been dating, this summer will be 2 years, even before then, my best friend, Taylor, of course, she does like different content than me, but she was always, she always thinks, like, oh, your room, I love, what are you going to do? And just having someone who's genuinely interested. And it's not that like your community's not, but having those people in your life, IRL or on Twitch, that you can bounce ideas off and like, that are supportive of you is just so important,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it makes me sad to think that there are people in life that don't have that, and that, streaming then is like 10 times harder, because it's like you're not only, you have to deal with like a lot of things with streaming that I don't think people realize, like negativity, harassment, like, I think the really interesting thing too is that you can have 10 nice comments and one negative comment. And I think as human beings, we're just going to focus on that one negative.
Mm-hmm.
And like having that support system is really important to be like, don't worry about that person. You know what I mean? Like, do what you want, wear what you want. You know what I mean? Do what makes you happy. And I think it's really important and not really talked about enough.
It's those particular things that just, I think, stick out and make it really tough to potentially deal with, right? Because streaming is hard for many different reasons, but then you have to like layer that on there. It's such a challenging thing in general, just to like from a technological standpoint, from like we touched on public speaking or just addressing people like while you're live, that's tough. And then to layer on these other things. And then you get, for some, like you said, some people, they don't have that kind of support, which makes it even tougher and more difficult to deal with.
Well, I think too with streaming, that is different than any other platforms it's live. Right? I remember first, like it wasn't until for me that I got around like 20 average viewership that the trolls and the negative comments, would just like pop on your screen. And I remember thinking, why would someone want to say that to someone? Like, how does that help? And I remember thinking like, this is so different than like Instagram or like YouTube where you get a comment, but you don't even look at it real time. You have that like separation, but you were like in the moment reading negative things about yourself. Right. And I feel like for me, and then you have mods and they help with that. Right. But I feel like for me, that was one of the hardest parts about learning to stream, was trying to take that feedback, even if it's not like true or real or whatever. Right.
Right.
And like trying to deal with that without saying anything or, like showing that. Right. Because then they've won.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think as a woman, that was, was something that, for streaming is very, very different than any other type of, social media or online digital media.
Yeah. It's definitely harder because, like you said, it's like it's in real time. It's happening in that moment. So when you read that message, you have to figure out how to address it in that moment.
Right. Or do you?
Like you said, like in a lot of cases, in most cases, don't address it. Don't give them that satisfaction, right? Of letting them impact you with whatever it is they said. So, yeah.
Right. And I think that's where, wonderful mod teams and, I've always said like I couldn't do it without them. Right. Yeah. Like there's been times where I've called off stream because I didn't feel like mentally or emotionally I could handle any negative comments that day. Right. Like I couldn't deal with, the weirdo, like that just says you get some pretty disgusting things said to you as a streamer, and I think that is something that, I don't want to say like, oh, you become immune to it or you get used to it. Cause I don't think that should be the way it is, but you really learn how to cope. I think that's the best way to say is like, how do you cope with it? And every streamer is different in that regard. Right. Streaming life.
streaming life. Is there anything that you wish people knew about streaming that you don't think most people think about, whether they're just a viewer or someone who's thinking about getting into it but has never done it themselves? Would there be any kind of like, here's something you should know that you probably didn't know?
Yeah, there's a couple things, I guess.
Okay.
I think one, and I think I kind of mentioned this before, when we first started streaming, it was very different, right? You could get on, you could just click the go live button and you could just grow. You just had your schedule, you showed up. Now streaming is not stream. No one can really just be a streamer anymore. You're a content creator. You have to do the work on the other socials, probably even more than streaming itself.
Yeah.
Right. Like you need to grow your community off, TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter. And, it's even something that I'm learning because before, and what I really liked about streaming was you really do have, in my mind, the most genuine connection with your community.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like when you post on Instagram, it could be like, oh, I look cute today. I'm going to post this picture. People
Right.
comment whether you look at it or not. Like Twitch is one of the only live streaming in general. I don't want to say Twitch anymore because there's, several live streaming opportunities and platforms now. But
yeah,
live streaming is one of the only places you can have really that like genuine conversation with your community, right? And so
right.
like I've always liked that the most because that's what I enjoy is the connection with people. But I think streaming, you can't just be a streamer anymore. You have to be a content creator. And some people may not like that. Some people may like that. But I think that is something that everyone should know getting into streaming is that you can't just hit the go live button anymore.
Yeah.
You have to have a Discord. You have to have all those other things, right? And I think sometimes, especially for people that have full-time jobs or have jobs or other families and other obligations, that can be very difficult and stressful. And so you need to, and that goes into my next point, you need to be very, very good at time management.
Mm-hmm.
You need to say, I get off work at 6:30. I have 30 minutes to myself, and then I have to start getting my, stream set up ready. And then I have to go shower and I have to do these things. And I get live on 10. And then I go to, I get off at around 2 a.m. And then I wake up at 7 for work. And then you need to have that focus already because streaming and content creation is not just clicking a button and playing games anymore. I think there was a time for that, but I think those days are gone, especially when COVID happened and has become so saturated.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then everyone was going to be a streamer, I think, at some point.
Yeah. And now it feels like everyone wants to be a streamer and and not that there's anything wrong with that. I think the more the merrier. Absolutely. But there are so many things that I don't think people realize. And I think what I've even realized, even within myself, is I have some streamers that are very, big streamers. Mm-hmm. And at every level of streaming, you have different things that you need to deal with, right? So for me, I started having to deal with harassment at 20 viewers. And I know it's going to sound weird, and I don't want to offend anyone, but I don't feel like you really have a lot of the caveats of streaming that, or the negative comments, the schedule, none of those pressures really happen until you probably hit 20 average viewers.
Yeah.
So I think when, I went through the 3 viewer grind, right? I went through that whole process and I was like, oh, streaming's great. I get to hang out with my friends and stuff like that. But as you grow, and then of course there's different caveats that come when you hit, partner numbers. And then there's caveats when you hit, 200 viewers. And then, I think my largest organic, not rated or whatever stream was 600 to 700 viewers. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a whole amount of pressure at different points in your streaming. And I have friends that are even, larger and, 1,000, more than that. Right. And then you get to a point where now they're dealing with swatting, for example, or things that I've never had to deal with, but they do. And so I think when you look at streaming isn't just hitting the go live button and hanging out with friends at certain points. It's really, it becomes, do I want to grow and then have to deal with that next thing and that next thing? And, I would say that's something that people that are getting into streaming should know, is that at every level of being a streamer, whether you're at that 3 viewer, 20 viewer, 1,000 viewer, there's different aspects that you need to learn and how to deal with. And everyone's going to deal with those differently. So, and you need to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that insight. And I really like that you point out how different it is from level to level. Because when you start out, it's I'm going to hit live, and I think most people are like, oh, it sounds fun, this sounds cool, I'm going to try it, it'll be great. And
it's just playing games with friends,
just hanging out, I'm just playing games. Which it is at that point when you're starting, but then as your community and viewership grows, kind of starts to take different challenges start to take shape as the community itself gets bigger. And so thank you for pointing that out. That's a really good point, because I think a lot of there's already a little bit of, I think, expectation that isn't true to what the experience is as a streamer going into it. like you said, it's like, oh, I just hit the go live button and it'll be cool. I'm just gonna hang out. It's gonna be fun. I've some of our previous guests have even pointed that out, where they've said, yeah, I thought it was just gonna be, I'm gonna hit start stream and it's gonna be cool. People are gonna show up and it's gonna be great. And then they realize it takes a lot of work, or as you said, as you hit 20 average viewers or more, you start dealing with other things that provide a lot of issue or concern or challenge. So
right.
Yeah.
And then I think too, if you're a woman, and I'm sure men deal with this too, it's like, how do you moderate your chat? Like, I had someone, I'll give you an example. I was around like 30, 40 viewers, average viewers. And, someone was in the community for like, 6 months. It felt fine. Like they were just one of the community members. And then suddenly, they hit that email and they sent me a 7-minute video about how they feel like I'm against them because I'm not playing the games that they like. And, they've donated to me or they've done things. And it's like, and it really like makes you feel like that pressure. Or like, I remember one of the other times when I'll just give you an example. I had one person, like when I first started playing games, I didn't care if they were subscribers or not, and I would do like, I'd play with whoever was in the community and stuff like that. And I had someone basically say on stream, they're like, why do I even sub to you if you're going to play with people who aren't subbed?
Wow.
And it was like that moment of like, oh, am I supposed to, as a streamer, only play with people that are subscribed? Like, and I like, because you like for you, it's like streaming is so new and stuff like that. And so like those moments are things that you don't really deal with, as an example that, that when I had 10 viewers or, 5 viewers playing Dead by Daylight, you don't really deal with. So I think it's really important to recognize that. I think people have like this idea of what it means to be a big streamer, but like going through and actually experiencing those types of things in your chat live.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what do I say to this? I mean, like, I remember at this point, I apologize. Like, oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't, I want to include everyone, whether they have the money to sub or whether they decide to sub, you know what I mean? Like, I want to, play with everyone,
Yeah.
And I never saw him again. And I still think about that moment a lot, especially because I did Fall Guys one night and I had an insane amount of like stress from thinking about playing Fall Guys with the community because I was not going to only make it sub only because I wanted everyone to be included.
Yeah.
Right. And just like having that moment, it was like, is he coming back to tell me,
Yeah.
like, why did I sub you, Yeah. So it's just stuff like that, that you don't really expect. So I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like with that or, pressures.
I've definitely had, I've had community, like longtime community members who have felt entitled to particular treatment, right? Or priority, not unlike what you've said. Ones who've said, hey, you should play this game. And I'll be like, I don't really feel like playing this game. And they're like, oh, but no, you'll like it. And it turns into this whole thing where I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, you can't tell, like, but it's like, oh, and then they pulled out that card. Oh, but I've been here forever. Trust me. I'm like, yeah, it's not that I don't trust you. I just don't want to play it. I'm sure it's a great game, and so, yeah, it's the same. It's kind of the whole, hey, you should listen to me because, and they were a sub too. I'm like, oh, I'm a longtime sub and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I appreciate the support. I do, but that doesn't mean you can tell me what to play and when.
Right.
Like, I'm not.
Right. Well, and then the other caveat, I think, as a female streamer, as a woman, that you'd get would be, people with expectations to like date you.
Yeah.
Or, like I've heard so many people of like, like, oh, keeping your relationship a secret to try and get money or, like,
geez.
But it's like, I've experienced, I've never really been, I really like to keep my relationships private. I don't think personally for me, like it has anything to do with my content.
Right.
So it's not something that I feel like is like no other job is like, are you single or, on your resume, on your application, are you putting, that kind of thing. And I think that's been a very hard thing about being a woman on the platform too, is it feels like you also not only question, are people actually there for you, but how many people are here that just want to like have the potential to date me?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's something else. And it's like the whole, like, as a woman, you can't win, because it's like, I've heard stories. If you're single, if you tell people you're single, are they just going to be in your community and give you money with hopes to date you? I've had friends, or, not necessarily, I haven't experienced this, but like, who say they're in a relationship and then their partner gets horrible emails about like, you're not good enough, this and that. Right.
Yeah.
Just because you're a woman. And so that's something that I've always felt not as comfortable sharing. But then when I didn't actually want to date a content creator or streamer because of that reason, because I wanted to keep it private. But then obviously things happen and you meet who you meet. And,
yeah,
and then it's kind of like, well, if you're dating another streamer, it's hard to like, you live in the same house. You can't really, it's hard to keep that a little bit of a secret. So, and then you bring in like new stressors of relationships. And, it's like a lot of people get like invested in your relationship in a sense, if you're two content creators as well,
Yeah.
So I think that's something else as a woman in the streaming space that has been difficult to navigate as well, because it's like, are you guys there? I mean, I used to have a moderator for 2 years, and like, I guess I'll share this, but I had a moderator who was with the community for 2 or 3 years and was aware I was dating someone when I first started streaming. Obviously, we're still moderators when I was single. And then as soon as I started dating my current boyfriend, started getting weird. And they were literally one of what I considered one of my best friends. Right. And started getting weird, where it would be like, they started, like Discord, like if they knew I was playing games with them, like, they would, start Discord calling me constantly and this and that. And like, eventually, like I had to block them. Right. I had to like take them off and get rid of them, because at the end of the day, but then that moment made me really question of like, and I'm sure you might even have this too, if your judgment of people.
Oh yeah.
Like, as a streamer, am I not like, is my judgment poor? Am I not really taking the checks and balances to make sure this person is like here for the community and not because they're for something more?
Yeah.
So I think that's like been one of the really difficult things about streaming for me. Not that I've like dealt with it, because I'm a very heavily modded chat. And then that's another caveat, right? As a woman, is you have a super heavily modded chat, like you're going to have less viewers theoretically, potentially, versus, sometimes people are, there for the chat and watching and, that kind of thing. So there's definitely like so many nuances.
Yeah. There's a lot to consider. There's a lot to consider.
Yeah. And things you don't even realize will happen until they happen. You're like, holy cow, I thought I did everything that I did. I did it on purpose. I was very clear. One of the things I say when I bring on a mod is like, I am in no way going to date you. We're friends. You're a moderator. You're part of this community. That's it. Yeah. If you have any other expectation, then it's time to just not even be a mod, but to remove yourself from the community. And, so you think you do all these things and you're, like I'm prepared. They know I've had those boundaries. I've had my communication with them. Everyone's aware. We're all on the same page. Good. And then it's like 2 years later, like that was like my apex, like me and another community member, El Rookie, like we would play Apex almost every night together. Like that was like our, I would confide in them, and it's just makes you realize that maybe as a streamer, you can't trust everyone, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's definitely tough. I've told this story on my stream before. I won't go into details, but I basically made a bad choice in a mod before myself, right? And this particular person decided to cause a lot of drama between another community and mine, which there was no beef there. That they only decided to create and manufacture, and and this was someone that I thought that I could trust and thought never would have imagined that this would happen, but they were trying to start some stuff between me and another streamer. And like you, I was like, did I am I bad at judging character? Am I?
Well, then you're thinking, are all my friends like this? Is
Yeah.
someone else get me?
Like, did I make a bad choice? Am I? and honestly, this was like the first person that was not like, I modded my real life friends when I got started, but then this was the first person that I didn't know personally, but they were involved in the community very heavily for a very long time. I was like, okay, this person seems cool, made them a mod, and then like over time it started to get questionable, and like I was like, man, am I bad at this? Did I make a mistake?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say that piggybacks off of also moderating to the type of community that you want as well. I remember watching an interview with Moon. Moon was one is an amazing streamer. Pretty much I'll watch anything he does. But he had like a podcast and an interview, and someone asked him like, how did you get your community the way that it is? Like, it's so like it seems like everyone just fits, and it's like thousands of people. And he said, when you start streaming, as much as it is hard to not want to ban or delete the message of that new person that just followed, even if they say something that's weird or just feels off, even though they did nothing technically wrong, you have to moderate that. You have to ban them. You have to delete it, because at the end of the day, you want to build a community based off what your values are. And if they don't align with that, then they're not going to be good for the growth of your community. And, as you progress as a streamer and as a community,
Absolutely.
And I remember thinking like, that made me feel like, I'm getting validated in my decisions to moderate the way, that I did. And, because I think like, not to be like, super out there with this, but like, as a woman, you get comments that are like, ooh, I like, like you could be, can I get a 360 outfit check or this and that? And like, and you got to just kind of delete that, and you got to get rid of that. And not that they did anything wrong, but like, is that the type of community that you want to build? And if you're okay with that, then that's fine. Right. As just an example.
Yeah.
But you really need to curate your chat from the start. And that, I think that's like maybe another thing that you mentioned of like, that's important for someone looking to get into streaming.
You gotta foster the kind of behavior that you expect and want to see regularly, or else when you allow stuff like that, like if you're cool with it, great. But if you're not, but you choose to allow it, then that tells the community that it's okay. And then you kind of head down that path of, now, if you weren't cool with that, but you're allowing it, it creates this problem, right? Because then you're allowing the community to, subconsciously, they're like, oh, it's cool to have that around here. And then even more people will behave that way, or people who are new, like, oh, I can talk like that. Sure.
Right. And I think that goes back to just making sure, and this is something that maybe like a lot of people don't actually know, like my moderators, I feel so close to them that I don't even look at deleted messages. I haven't looked at unbanned requests since December of 2020. And I've kind of just said, and it kind of goes in line with that, of I trust them enough. They were in the community from, very long time. They know what is right, what feels right, what other people in the community are going to be comfortable with, that I don't feel like I have a need to look at unbanned requests, because they do that all, because they know the type of community that we have, or, what we want here and who's going to be a good fit. And yeah, I just think that's like something that also is really, really important. I don't want to like stress it more, but moderators and your team and the people that you have surrounding you are so important. I would say, if not the most important part about streaming.
As a note, I love the community that you've built on your channel. I think everyone there is fun and great, and
thank you.
I love hanging out there and either chatting or lurking, depending on what I'm up to. But yeah, I love it there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I would say also, when you say lurking, I also have to comment on that, is that I also feel like as a streamer, it's important to think about your content, because I would say most of your community is going to be lurkers, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have maybe 10%, if you're lucky, chatting. at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so as someone who also works full time, and I like to game when I'm not streaming, and I like to have what I call is like that second monitor streamer, right? Like something
Right.
else to also think about is making sure that you're doing content, even if you're on mute. How does that, is someone going to watch my content even if I'm muted?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I also think about. And that's why like Lego and cooking and those types of things are appealing to me because, you know, for me, like when I watch someone or art, for instance, like I'll play Apex and in a game, I'll kind of see like, oh, what progress did they make? Right.
Yeah.
And so even as a streamer, you have to think about like if 90% of your viewer base is going to be lurkers, are you doing content that's still going to fill that need? Or if it's, you know, like, or if it's not, how do you change that?
Yeah.
Right.
That's such a good point. I definitely think about, I think about both sides of it, the visual and the audio, right? I think about like if, okay, if they can't hear me, what are they seeing on the screen? Or if they have me up in a tab, but they're looking at something else, what are they hearing? And those, both aspects of that are super important in general, because you have people who want to consume your stream any number of ways. It could be audio only, it could be video only, it could be, you know, maybe they can't look up at every moment, so they'll only catch bits and pieces of it. So how are you as the person, the creator and the streamer, allowing for that? And what kind of stream do you want it to be? How friendly is it one way or the other or both?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I always wonder, like, not that there's anything wrong with, you know, being gaming streamer, but you see so many people that are like, I play a game and I'm consistent, but no one comes to my stream. I only have, you know, myself watching and, you know, all this kind of stuff. But you go and do it. It's like, are you talking? It's like a lot of times you go into the stream and they're just like,
yeah,
you know, and, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But like, what is, you know, going to make you want to watch that versus someone who's interactive or like amazing, a pro at a game, or, you know, like, you know, I think that's the other thing you have to figure out. What is your niche? Like what makes people want to watch you over everyone else?
Yep.
Right. Is it your personality, the background when you're lighting? You know what I mean? Does it catch your eye? Is it, you know, you're doing something super niche like Lego building that, you know, there's not a lot of creators that do that necessarily. So maybe that helps, you know? So I think that's another, you know, thing to think about when you do start streaming, or if you're thinking about streaming, is like, why would someone watch you over the other person doing Lego? Or, you know, and not that it's a competition. I don't want to like make it, because I think there is something to be said about, you know, having like other friends that stream the same content as you do. And I think that's special, you know, having that shared, you know, like, you know, you have that shared passion, but you also share those same like struggles. And I think that's why you see a lot of people that become friends within certain, you know, Apex streamers, for instance, or Destiny streamers, or, you know, like that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. We got our circle of Lego creators. You know, I got my Lego friendos and my Destiny friends, which actually are kind of almost the same circle. But yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's, you know, it's kind of like the same struggle. It's like, oh, other people also Lego creators struggle with getting, you know, their builds done or doing, you know, work while they're chatting. I'm not alone. I don't feel like a failure in that sense, you know. You know, it's a common problem whether you're, you know, a professional or not, you know.
You've had such wonderful insight on everything we've discussed. Madeline, thank you so much for all of this. Where do you hope to bring your channel, like your community? What is the long-term goal going, like, from here? Where do you want to go with it?
My plan is to change my username to Gaming Grandma once I'm, you know, 60. No, we've always joked about that. I was like, would you guys watch me if I was like 60 years old and like, you know, in this thing?
I love it.
You know, Grandma Madeline. No, I think moving forward, obviously, the one goal is to, you know, it's not my full-time thing. So doing something or doing content, whatever that is, that makes me and the community happy, you know, so that's probably the first. I think moving forward, you know, and more of the short term, I probably see definitely going Lego route. You know, maybe I'll play, you know, games one night a week if there's time, you know. I'm not really stressing too much if we get there. but really just, continuing to grow and create an inclusive, positive environment, and whether that be, I still plan to stream on Twitch, but, as things in our lives change, maybe that incorporates like I think about like, well, what if I move into a new house and I need to do, remodeling work? Do I start, streaming remodeling?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you think about stuff like if you do work full time, you really need to make your stream if you want to be consistent and you want to stream an X amount of days a week. You really need to think about how to incorporate your own life into that, right? Like I don't have the luxury, like many of us don't, to just be a gaming streamer because, like my boyfriend, it's his full-time job. He can do that, right? Because that's his income, right?
Right.
I don't. So I think moving forward, it's kind of like thinking about how I will evolve as a person and how I can include the community within that, and then there's things like, like moving or like, homes or, do I start doing, like it's like if I become, do I need to start doing workout streams to try and get my workouts in more? Like, just creating content around my life that fits at this point, because I feel like we've built a community enough that if I decide to do cooking one day, people, they'll watch. If I start to do Lego, they'll watch. If I want to, have some drinks and rage playing Apex, they'll watch. Right.
Right.
So I think just, continue to grow and do things that make me happy. And wherever that goes, who knows? Maybe it becomes remodeling the house every Tuesday and Saturday when we move,
Yeah.
So I think that kind of is where I see things going, because it really does bring me great joy to bring the community that we built into my life in that way.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I'll be there. I'll be watching.
Yay.
Yeah, we'll be watching where your channel and community evolves. Thank you, Madeline. This was great. I'm so glad we got to chat and get to know each other. For those that don't already follow Madeline, twitch.tv/Madeline. Variety streams, cooking, video games, Lego, maybe home renovation at some point.
At some point when we get a house.
Yeah, like who knows? There's all kinds of possibilities. But thank you so much, Mads. It was great. I love what you're doing. I love your community. I showed up for the Lego and I stayed for the chats and the cooking and everything else as well. And you and your community are wonderful. So yeah, I love it. And I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Appreciate it. It was so wonderful. It's my first podcast. So thank you for making it such a wonderful experience. You are amazing as well as a streamer and as a person. I'm not going to lie. I cried one night because I was like, I've never felt so accepted in streaming as I have in the Lego community. And that really does say a lot about what the Lego community really is about, and acceptance and inclusiveness, especially as a woman. So I think that's really important to just say kudos to you and your community and just everything that you guys work on. And it's incredible. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's the first time I felt really accepted. So
I'm glad. I'm glad that you feel that way. And honestly speaking, I'm only doing what was done for me when I joined the greater Lego community, as well as finding amazing people in that group. So I'm glad that you feel the same way. I'm glad that you are a part of it, and that it made you feel the same way it did me. So thank you for that.
Right. Gives me hope.
Absolutely.
Humanity.
Absolutely. So I don't like to close out the show because I feel like it's better left in the hands of the person guesting. So for you, any final thoughts, any final words for those that are watching and listening? The floor is yours, Madeline.
Whatever you do in life, do it with passion, do it with positivity. The way you think in your state of mind is so important to the success in whatever you do in life, whether that's streaming, a job, a career, education. Just do it because you're passionate about it and if it makes you happy. And don't care about what anyone thinks or says to you. Ultimately, if that's what gives you joy in this world, then you need to follow it and you need to crush it and you need to do it. And don't go through the motions. It's like the one thing, and I never got it. My dad always told me when I was growing up, don't go through the motions. And I guess what I mean by that is if you have to do something in life, whether that's you show up for your job, you show up for your stream, do it with 100% or more effort, because you still got to put the same time in. You still got to put, yourself out there in whatever that way is. So do it 100% and go full throttle.